Okay, recording part two of I don't know how many I'm going to make these, but I just wanted to make another video to just talk about um, just another thing that comes up a lot. I feel like while we're playing, and might be a miscommunication on my part on what my expectations are for you as a player, and also what your expectations are for me as a DM. And that's just talking about skills and how to use those skills. And typically, how it goes in our games is I'm the DM and I'll give you a problem, a scenario, or maybe I'll like describe a situation, right? And then you, as a player, will make a skill check, or you'll say that you want to do some type of skill, and then I'll say do roll for this, or I'll give you an answer based on the skill that you said that you want to do, right? So typically, how this goes is you're walking down the street, and I describe a general setting, and then you say, I want to look for a magic shop. So then instead of uh, whatever, I'll just say perception check, and you'll roll a perception check, and then I'll tell you what you see. But sometimes when we're playing, and I'm pretty sure I've done this in each one of your different lobbies, is I'll say, what kind of check do you want to make? And usually I'll say this as like an open-ended prompt to you to be like, okay, now think about your actions and what specifically are you trying to gain from this interaction? However, more times often than not, I'll say, what kind of check do you want to make? And a player will respond with perception check, or just the base level of whatever they've already done, or whatever is just like the most bare bones version of that skill, which is fine for like a base level understanding of what's going on, where you're looking at. However, if you want more information about uh, the skills that you're doing, the actions you're performing, the people around you, the items that you're holding, or maybe you want to like complete tasks in a different type of way, use your skills to their fullest capacity. So here I've just taken a basic character skills sheet. Everyone's got one of these, and I just highlighted in three different colors all of the skills here, which is I've categorized them down into information, physical, and social skills. And as you noticed, some of these skills have multiple dots next to them, and that's only because you can use them in multiple different ways. So, just briefly, I'm just going to go over the skills and what they mean. So, acrobatics is, so we'll just talk about like the physical ones first, right? So, here we'll do this. So, acrobatics here. Acrobatics is dex based. So whenever you're trying to do a dexterous task, so like you're trying to be nimble in your actions. So if you're trying to walk across ice, maybe you're trying to walk across like a tightrope, or you're hanging on a ledge, and you're trying to like whip yourself up and around over the top of it, or perhaps there's like a deadly pit next to you and you're just trying to scale your way past it, trying not to fall over, trying not to do this. So it's mainly about like keeping your balance, keeping yourself centered, and doing maybe acrobatic feats, maybe if you want to do like a front flip too. All right. Next is animal handling. It's pretty self-explanatory. Whenever you're dealing with animals, this also deals with not only like dealing with small creatures, like you want to like convince a parrot to follow you around to be like kind to you, but also larger animals, like if you want to ride a horse, or you want to stand on the back of a bear while it runs down the side of a cliff. That might be acrobatics as well as animal handling. Next is athletics. Athletics is mainly strength based, so it's like performing physical feats. So, like either pushing people aside with your physical strength, or perhaps it's you're in an arm wrestling contest and you're trying to brute force your way through. It can also be like if a like you're trying to hold up something that's really heavy, or you're trying to kick down a door, right? Investigation, you might not think of it as a physical stat, but physically, you have to search for things. It can also be used for, like, if you want to physically inspect something or someone, or you want to investigate an area much like a detective would, right? So like think about you're trying to find a clue in a room. It's not just uh, it's not just looking at things, it's also tearing things apart, right? So like say that there's a secret letter stuffed in the mattress. It's going to require a certain amount of physical force for you to investigate your way into it and rip it apart. Next is medicine, and I'd say that's a variable physical stat. Medicine has to deal a lot with uh, like helping other people or helping yourself. Pretty much any kind of like medicinal kind of work that's done to either help someone who's sick or drunk or maybe just not exactly right in the head. It might also be used for information or social aspects, but I'll get to that later. Um, from a physical standpoint, it's uh, it's mainly about helping people or helping yourself stop bleeding, wake someone up, um, do things to either harm them or make them feel better. Next is sleight of hand. Pretty self-explanatory, but it can get a little tricky. It is it's however you want to use your hands nimbly. Like when I said about acrobatics up here, it's the same thing of sleight of hand that, that it's about your nimbleness and your ability to complete things like very delicately and quickly. So it's not just like stealing things out of people's pockets. It's also if you want to like place something in someone's pocket, or maybe you're doing a card trick and you want to show off how quickly you can like twirl a pen through your fingers, or maybe you want to you've got a holster for your wand and you're twirling your wand around and you want to slide it into your holster really quickly instead of dropping it on the ground because you want to grab a new weapon, or you want to sheath your sword really quickly. I'd have you do a sleight of hand check, and if it's high enough, I'd let you slide that shit in instead of you having to drop it. um, Stealth. Stealth is also just hiding. So, like, if you want to be sneaky in any kind of facet, this kind of pairs well with sleight of hand, but they are different. Um, so, say that you wanted to steal something out of that guy's pouch, like we talked with sleight of hand, right? You'd do a sleight of hand check to physically steal the things, but if you wanted to sneak up on him without being seen, you'd be doing stealth. You can hide behind objects to, do stealth. Like if you hide behind a tree or a house or a rock. Stealth can also be used if you want to like hide amongst a crowd and you kind of want to blend into your environment. It doesn't necessarily mean totally obscuring yourself. It just means you just want yourself to not be noticed. So this could be just like blending in plain sight, hiding in plain sight. It can also be like hiding in the shadows. Um, Survival. Think about survival as like your Boy Scout or Girl Scout badge. Like anything that you would do to complete a badge uh, for your troops, it would fall under survival. It also refers to like your instincts and your general like vibe about things. Like if you want to do a check to kind of like sense out an area, suss out an area. Um, you'd be doing a survival check to just kind of like see how you feel about a situation, or let's say uh, you want to like warm yourself up after falling in the frozen river. You do a survival check to like try to like get your body all like cramped up together or warm up next to somebody else so that you don't catch hypothermia. It could also be like your ability to make a fire if you're out and you only have spark rocks that do like a survival check to try to start a fire, or pretty much anything that you, like if you would think uh, like I could get my Boy Scout badge from doing this. All right. So next is let's talk quickly. I'm trying to go as quickly as I can, but I know that these need more explaining. Arcana. Arcana, pretty much anything that has to do with magic. It's not just your ability to talk about magical things, but also your ability to understand magical things. If you're not a wizard and you've never made a potion, you probably won't understand how potions work. but it might be able to, like, you might be able to clue in. Okay, I see like a giant's toe in this, and I'm going to do an Arcana check to kind of like see what kind of potion this is. And you might, if you don't have experience making potions, you might be able to take like a educated guess as to what it might be or what it might lead to. Um, Next is deception. You know what? That's more of like a social thing. I'll explain that with the social things when it gets to it. History. It's history of anything that you can remember about the area that you're in. Maybe a history on an object. If you have like a ring that has a crest on it, maybe you want to do a history check on anything it reminds you of something you've seen within the city, or maybe you do a history check based on the region. Maybe you remember seeing something in your travels that remind you of this thing. Think about history much like how just as like this stat exists for me to give lore to your character that you didn't write. So so think about it like you go in and you find a painting of a soldier, and you do a history check because he looks like he's well renowned, and you do well. So then I tell you that he was this great general who led their land and was one of the founding members of this city. You learned about it in this previous city that he conquered through. Um, and obviously, that's not something that you know by the offset because you didn't write it into your lore. But it kind of helps just think about this stat as anything that is you remembering. So, like, how do I remember this thing? I'm going to have you do like a history stat to either remember a person or to remember a place or to like remember X thing. Insight is primarily dealing with people. So, like, if you ever want to know more information about a person, say you're talking to somebody and you're like, I'm reading this, so I don't know exactly what they're saying. So, I want to do an insight check to see if I find their tone sarcastic or angry, or if he's lying, or if he's telling the truth. I want to know if he's an honest person or if he seems shifty. It's kind of like an insight check to see what this person's all about. Next is talked about medicine investigation. We'll talk about nature a little bit. Nature is pretty much any kind of information having to do with any kind of trees or fauna or funguses, anything that has to do with nature related. Sometimes I'll pair this with survival, and I'll say like when it has to come to do with like geography, I'll do survival, and then with nature, I'll do about like specific fauna, like trees or plants or whatever. Um, this can also be paired with arcana pretty well. Like if a plant, for example, you do a nature check about a plant, and I tell you that it has some magical properties to it, that might give you a hint that if you were to investigate it further, maybe you start making arcana checks about that plant instead of nature checks because you've already gained all your nature information you've had about that. Perception, you all have used it plenty of times, but this is where I will put down the context. Perception is only what you can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. It's the five senses, right? I'm not, if you do a perception check and you want greater insight onto something, it's not going to happen. I'm only going to tell you what you see or hear or smell or feel about this object, and I'm not going to give you any extra information outside of those five senses. So if you want more information, that'd have to be from one of these other categories that you do a check for. Performance, when you're performing, you're putting on a show. It's like deception sometimes, but it's more so about you like being overall charming to a person or a group of people. To kind of like state your means. Persuasion, think about it as the opposite of deception. Um, I'll just deception, lying in any kind of capacity, not being truthful. Persuasion, being truthful and trying to get people to do what you want. Deception, not being truthful, trying to get people to do what you want. Religion, anything that has to do with a religion, religious standpoints. If you're trying to figure out religious imagery or think about how religions connect to one another, maybe somebody's name might sound religious, or an area of town might be more religiously inclined than another part. Um, you can use religion for a number of different things. And then finally, intimidation. I'll just do this in red here since we didn't really do any red ones, but whatever. Intimidation. Um, uh, if you would think about deception as getting people to do what you want, but lying about it, and persuasion to getting to people to do what you want, but being honest about it. This is getting people to do what you want uh, roughly. So, like meanly. It doesn't necessarily mean meanly, but it means that you're not trying to beat around any kind of bushes here. You're not trying to lie. You're not trying to persuade. You're just telling them how it is and what exactly you want and how well you can present yourself so that you're not a person to be messed with. Okay, so I'm gonna take it all back here. All right. So that was I know that was a while. I'm gonna make a mark in the video so you can skip all this. Um, okay, so when I ask you, what kind of check do you want to make? That is an open ended question. You will get different results for the different checks that you do. So typically, what always ends up happening, and this happens all the time, so I'm not like pointing fingers at a specific person, because I feel like everyone that's going to watch this video is going to be like, oh, shit, is he talking about me? No, I'm not. I'm talking about everybody. Typically, what I end up saying is like, what do you want to do? And then the reply is, I want to do a perception check. Base level, that's fine. That's totally fine. But if it feels like that you're missing out on all these different stats and you only feel like you're rolling perception checks over and over and over and over again, that is because, and I don't mean to point fingers, that is because you are choosing only to do the perception checks. If you wanted to do a different blue check instead of perception, you totally could. And you know what? You would get a different answer. If you rolled a nat 20 for perception, I would not give you any information that is involved with history or insight or arcana. If you rolled a natural 20 for perception, say you were trying to look at a statue, right? Look at a statue in the center of town. It's a really important statue for the town. You look at the statue. I tell you exactly what it looks like. I tell you what it's made out of. Right? You roll a nat 20. I tell you how. I tell you like the construction, how you think this thing stands, and there's wind blowing against it, and it looks incredibly clean. Someone must clean it all the time. Yada yada yada. I tell you all of the five senses, all about this. I'll tell you what it tastes like, what you can hear from it. But you won't know if it has any religious significance. You won't know if it has any historical significance. Um, you won't know if it's made out of natural materials. All you saw was that you think it's stone. Maybe it's some kind of like nature wood that's hardened like stone. It's so difficult and hard to make that you wouldn't know unless you made a nature check. Maybe it's magical. Maybe this statue is magical. But since it doesn't fall under one of the five categories, you didn't make an arcana check, I wouldn't tell you any of that. So let's say that you acquire a unique item. You fight a monster and it drops something really, really cool, right? Maybe it's like you got like brass knuckles that have a dragon engraved onto them. Do a perception check, right? Tell you exactly what it looks like, tell you the craftsmanship, tell you what it looks like, what it tastes like. It tastes really rough. You want to like spit it up after you taste it. But I won't tell you if that thing is magical. Say that you brought it to an item seller guy, whatever, right? Magic shop, and they told you it's magical. And they told you the properties of everything it did. They still won't tell you because they don't know. They didn't do the check for it. They didn't do a history check. They don't know the historical significance of these brass knuckles and how they were held by the great General Tullius from Skyrim. Blah blah blah. Uh, he won't tell you that this is a religious artifact. It won't tell you any of these extra stats that they didn't do and you didn't do, and you're missing out on all this information because you think that the at a base level how it looks and what it does is the only significant value to it, which isn't typically the case. There's always multiple different stats you can roll for the same action. So let's talk about physical things, right? So, like, say you wanted to get into a locked house. Yes, sure, you could do an athletics check to kick down that door. You just brute force it your way through. Maybe you wanted to climb up the side of the building. So instead of doing an athletics check, you would do an acrobatics check and you climb up there. Maybe you want to do an investigation check. Why did investigation to get into a house? Maybe that family hides a key to get into the house, like the normal family would. They might. Who knows? You do an investigation check to try to specifically to find a key, or perhaps um, you want to do some sleight of hand. Maybe there's a window open. You want to kind of like reach your hand in there and like try to sleight of hand, nimble with your fingers, unlock it from the other side. Um, all of these different kinds of things. Okay, how about steal coins off the top of a bar in a tavern? What stats do you think that you would use for this? Just from the offset, just looking at all of these different stats that exist in front of you, go down the list. What could I use for it? Could I use acrobatics, animal handling, arcana, athletics, deception, history, insight, intimidation, investigation, medicine, nature, perception, performance, persuasion, religion, sleight of hand, stealth, or survival? Hmm. Could I use acrobatics? Could I acrobatically steal those coins? Maybe. I don't know if I would try it, but you might be able to. Animal handling, I don't think there's any animals around. Arcana, I don't think that there's anything magical or information that I have to understand from this. Athletics, Now I was thinking sleight of hand or stealth, but athletics, could I reasonably slam my hand so hard on the table that I just grab those coins and take them? Or how about this? Could I punch my way through the top of the table, grab the coins, and then that'd be interesting. I think the tavern owner would get really pissed off at you, but I do think that it's possible. But that could also go along with intimidation. Maybe you don't want to stealth it. You don't want to sleight of hand it. You don't care if someone looks at you. You want to take those coins. And not only do you not care, you want to look at the tavern owner as you do it. You want to stare him down. You want to say, yes, I know this is your money and I'm taking it right now. What are you going to do about it? That'd be intimidation. Maybe you want to do or persuasion. You want to convince the tavern owner. You'd be like, listen, like if you give this to me, I promise I will double your investment in 1 week. As soon as you find two guys and I find three guys, and then create a pyramid scheme. Maybe deception. You say, "Oh, sorry, I overpaid." Right? Like these are actually my coins. The other bartender gave it to me. All of these different things on this skill sheet are far more. You can use far more skills than you think for a singular task. So I feel like, say you wanted to distract a wizard, typically you'd say, okay, well, I'm distracting someone, so I'd want to do a performance check, right? You could do a performance check, but you're talking to a wizard here, right? What would they find more interesting than just talking about, oh, what the weather's like? Maybe instead of a performance check, maybe an arcana check would be more likely to succeed than a performance check. So let's say, like, because this is behind the DM screen here, let's say that a performance check requires a DC of 15 to succeed, right? And this basically, this number right here, DC, this essentially means that you have to roll at least this number to succeed. I don't ever tell you these things, but these things are different for each stat. So, like, you wanted to distract that wizard, you'd have to roll at least a 15, right, to succeed in performance. But since he likes talking about magic, if you rolled an Arcana check, he'd be more willing to listen to you in the first place. So instead of rolling a DC 15, you'd have to roll a DC 10. Or maybe after talking to this guy for a little bit, he won't shut up about the goddamn architecture of this city. So instead, you want to talk about history. Maybe that's his secret little boy stat. Maybe that stat is far more important to him than any other stat. Maybe that one skill, maybe that one topic, talking about the history of one specific thing in the city, history of the architecture, is so much more important to him than magic, which is his profession, or is so much more important than, like, your singing voice, that that stat has a DC of 7. So you only have to roll a 7. Now, of course, I'm not going to tell you what these are, but if you can reasonably deduce which stat is more important to the character you're talking to, you could potentially not roll as good, but succeed at a higher rate than someone who just uses, let's say, someone who just uses performance for every single thing. Like, maybe they have like a +6 in performance, and you only have like a +1 in history. If they don't roll a 15, like they roll a 10, and you roll a 10, you will succeed, and they will not, even though they have a +6, right? Or I should say, this is like they roll an 8. They roll an 8, you roll a 10, you succeed, they fail, and they don't understand what the fuck is going on. It's the same thing with religion, or maybe intimidation. Maybe they're like really weak-willed, right? Typically, you think, okay, I want to do persuasion because I think that if I fail, they won't be as mad at me. That might be the case, but they also, right? So let's say, like, you're trying to talk to someone, you're trying to talk to a homeless man, right? Uh, uh, and I did not spell this right. There you go. Trying to talk to a homeless man, and you're trying to decide whether you want to do deception, or you want to do persuasion, or you want to do intimidation. And from the offset, you might think to yourself, okay, well, I want to do persuasion because if I fail, like I said, they won't be mad at me because I'm just talking to them. And that might be true. Whereas deception, if I fail, they'll know that I was lying to them, or the lie would not work. And then I have to go down and either have to stick with the lie or have to do something else. And intimidation is just so scary because if I fail, then they're going to be angry at me. And I don't want that. The thing is, though, persuasion, while they might not be as hard mad at you if you don't make the persuasion right, it might be that this person is way harder to persuade, because they're just a lot more capable of having conversations. They've had a lot more persuasive interactions in their life. So maybe this is like a DC 18. Oh my God, a deception check. Maybe that's Maybe that's just as hard, right? It might be a little easier. Who knows? Intimidation, maybe they're really weak-willed. Maybe they really respect authority, and if you impose your intimidation on them, oh my God, maybe they might think that you have a higher authority than them, and they would get skittish and scared. So maybe intimidation might even have a super low check, and then you'd succeed more often. let's like talk about like maybe getting a discount from a blacksmith. You go into a blacksmith shop and you're trying to get a discount on a weapon, right? You go in there and you're trying to persuade him, right? You have all these different options. You have all of these different options on this entire list. Let's start from the top. So like let's say like, oh, I want to do persuasion to try to get this person to give me this item. You can do persuasion. You can talk to them. You know, say like, oh, I could kill so many monsters if I had this. I'm a great adventurer. Don't you want your name to be associated with me? I'll shop exclusively at this shop, and they'll be like, oh, that's a tempting offer. Deception, you could say. You could say the same thing, even though you're a punk ass bitch who doesn't go on adventures. Intimidation, you could say, you could give me this, or I don't know, you guys might have an accident. Who knows? Um, and those are three of the like the talking things, but you can also use something else, right? Um, you could maybe do an athletics check to like if you take an axe in their shop and you're like, has anyone have you seen anyone do this before? And you like chop a piece of wood in half in a single swing, and they're just so impressed by your craft, your ability to use their weapon so well that they just give it to you. Maybe you want to do like a sleight of hand where you take a rapier and you swing it around in the air and then you perfectly put it in your sheath, and they're so impressed and they think that you're such a high class adventurer that they give you a discount on what you're doing. Maybe you want to do stealth and you want to like try to stealth around the shop and slowly put things in your bag as you're walking around. Um, or perhaps you could do a survival check or a arcana check or a history check or a medicine check or a religion check about any of the different materials that he used. Maybe you're trying to get on the good side by talking shop with him, by talking about how he designs his materials and kind of like getting into his head a little bit. That saying like, oh yeah, I'm also interested in blacksmithing. I'm your friend, you know. And just talking persuasion wise, you'd be less likely to get there just talking generally than if you were to go specific, right? And talk about maybe he uses a special magical forge and you want to talk to him about his magical forge and you using your own magical background to talk about it. Maybe you want to talk about the history of his clan and where he comes from, and maybe just being that person to let him like talk to you about his history is enough for him to just like help you out and give you a discount. So it isn't like an offset here. I just want to like put a blanket statement over all of this. And I know that I've been rambling for a while, but I guess these videos just exist for me to ramble and nobody else can talk to me while I'm talking. You can't interrupt me, fucking pieces of shit. I'm God. What? Oh, wait. Uh, Shit, that went dark. Um, yeah. So as an overall, when I'm in the game, when we're in the game, when we're all playing together, and I say, what check do you want to make? That's not me saying, there's two checks for you to do. Which one do you want to do? That's me saying, look at your entire skill list. Look at all of your skills. Each one of your skills will give a different result. What result do you want? Which result do you think is going to succeed the most? And what skill do you want to roll for? Okay, that's it. Make sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch and Zoom links. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter. Um, Follow me on Facebook. Uh, follow me on Discord. Follow me on Xbox. Follow me on PlayStation. Follow me on PC. Follow me in my house. Follow me to my job. Follow me to work. I want you to follow me everywhere I go all the time. I never want you to stop following me. I want you to always be there. Never leave me. You're not allowed to leave. I know where you live. You can't escape from me. You think this is it? You think I'm playing around here? No. I'm gonna fucking find